All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving headfirst into a really pervasive problem.
Hmm.
We're talking about authorized push payment scams, or
Hmm.
APP scams for short.
Yeah.
And these are especially tricky because unlike your typical credit card fraud where someone just steals your information,
Right.
this is where you are actually authorizing the payment. You're sending the money to these criminals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Our sources today take us on a journey through how widespread this is and some really interesting solutions being explored, especially in Europe, using things like digital identity.
Yeah.
So let's get to the heart of this whole mess and see what we can learn about it, right?
That's good.
So first off, just how bad is this problem? I mean, we throw around the word scam a lot. But
Yeah. It's a huge problem. And actually, if you look at the UK, back in 2022,
Right.
they lost nearly £500 million,
Wow.
which is nearly 40% of all fraud. Now, it did go down a little bit in 2023, but still nearly £2 billion just gone in 4 years.
Wow.
And it's not just, like you said, it's not just about the amount of money lost, but it's the kind of scams we're seeing. Like all these purchase scams,
Right.
smaller value, but high volume,
Right.
targeting everyday people, just regular consumers.
Yeah.
And that's really eroding trust. Like it's not just about the money, it's about
Yeah.
the impact on our faith in the whole system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned the UK, but this isn't just a British problem, is it?
Not at all.
What's the picture like in, say, Europe as a whole?
Europe seeing billions lost every year, and this is a trend, like a global trend. You see it in India, Brazil, Australia, even the US is starting to catch up. Wherever you have these instant payment systems,
Oh, I see, yeah.
that's where you see these scams really exploding.
That makes a lot of sense because the money's just gone. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no time to kind of catch it.
Right.
It's just whoosh, gone.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's clear this is a big deal, but before we get into how it's being tackled, let's, I guess, put some faces to these numbers.
Yeah.
We're talking about real people's lives here.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about individual losses. They
Yeah.
can be anything from, a couple $100 to like their entire life savings wiped out.
Goodness me.
Devastating. And then the purchase scams, yeah, they're common, but the investment scams, those are the ones that really rack up the losses.
Oh, I see.
Big money. And the banks, they're trying, they're refunding hundreds of millions
Yeah.
in the UK alone.
Okay.
But still, they're losing a lot of money. And it's really about the victims, right? The emotional distress, the impact on their lives. It's huge.
Absolutely. And what's really striking from all this is the idea that there's a huge iceberg under the surface.
Yeah, yeah.
Tons of these scams just never get reported, right?
Exactly. Potentially like 1 in 3 APP scams aren't even on the official radar.
Wow. So the true scale is probably much, much bigger.
Exactly. It's pretty scary when you think about it.
Okay, so let's try to understand how these criminals are pulling this off, right?
Sure.
I mean, what kind of tactics are we talking about here?
Well, it all comes down to social engineering.
Okay.
So, like, you've got the classic impersonation scams where they
Okay.
pretend to be your bank or the police
Right.
or even, a government agency.
Right, right.
Anything to create that panic.
Yeah, yeah.
They say, oh, there's suspicious activity on your account.
You got to act now.
You need to transfer your money to a safe account,
Right, right.
which is, of course, their account.
Of course, yeah.
Those can be really high value.
Makes sense. And then what else? I mean, what other tricks are they using?
Oh, you've got your fake online ads,
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
for goods, services,
Right.
and they make you pay through like a direct bank transfer instead of using a secure platform.
Oh, sneaky.
Then you've got the investment scams, cryptocurrency scams. Those are big right now. Promises of huge returns. They often have these like really professional looking websites.
Right.
Then there's romance scams. They play on your emotions, build trust, then ask for money.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, those can be really damaging.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've got like the business email compromises,
Okay.
targeting businesses. They send fake invoices or pretend to be the CEO asking for an urgent payment.
Right, right. I've heard horror stories about those, like
Oh, they can lose a ton of money.
huge amounts.
Absolutely. And then on top of all that, you've got technology making things even worse.
Oh, how so?
Like AI-powered voice cloning, deep fakes,
wow.
where they can sound exactly like someone you trust. They also use things like spoofing
Yeah.
to hide their real phone number.
Right, right. So you
Oh.
think you're talking to, your bank,
Exactly.
but it's not them at all.
Right. And behind the scenes, they've got these networks of mule accounts
E-accounts, yeah.
to move the money around quickly, make it hard to trace.
Yeah, right. So it's like a whole, almost like a criminal enterprise.
It is, yeah. It's a sophisticated operation.
Wow. Okay, so with all that in mind, I mean, this is quite a web they've woven. What are people doing about it? What's Europe doing with it specifically?
Yeah, so Europe's trying to hit this from multiple angles.
Okay.
So there's this thing called PSD3.
PSD3.
It stands for the Third Payment Services Directive
Okay.
and the Payment Services Regulation, or PSR.
Okay.
Basically, they're trying to put more pressure on payment service providers. So
Yeah.
like the banks and other companies that handle payments.
So making them more responsible if fraud happens.
Exactly. The idea is if you're a victim of APP fraud, you should have the right to get your money back.
Oh, interesting.
The details are still being worked out, but there's a big push for that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So the banks have a real incentive to actually prevent this stuff, right?
Exactly. There's also this push for mandatory verification of payee, or VOP.
VOP.
So before you send money, the bank has to check that the name on the account you're sending it to actually matches.
Oh, okay. So that would cut down on those cases when
Yep.
you think you're sending it to your friend.
Exactly, but it's actually the criminal's account.
Yeah, yeah.
They're also trying to improve information sharing between banks
Right.
so they can better track these fraudsters. And, of course, they're always working on strengthening, the security of online payments.
Right, right. So it's kind of a multi-pronged attack.
Exactly, a multi-layered approach.
Okay. Now, I got to ask about this thing I keep hearing about. These digital ID wallets.
Yeah.
What's the deal with those, and how could they help fight APP fraud?
Well, that's a big part of this whole IIDs 2.0 thing,
IDs 2.0.
which is a fancy way of saying the European Union is working on a framework for European digital identity wallets.
Okay.
The goal is basically to give everyone a secure way to prove who they are online. So instead of using, passwords and all that,
Right.
you have this digital wallet that holds your verified information.
Got it.
And that would make it way harder for criminals to impersonate you.
Okay, so that's kind of like a digital passport almost,
Yeah, kind of like that.
but for all sorts of things online.
Exactly. And it could also be used for things like confirming that the person you're paying is actually who they say they are.
Oh, okay. So like you could check a contractor's business ID and bank details before you send them any money.
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting. So these digital ID wallets seem like they have a lot of potential, but are they really like a silver bullet for this problem?
Well, no, not really. I mean, like any technology, it can be exploited. Criminals are clever.
Yeah.
They'll find ways to try and trick people into, authorizing payments, even with these wallets. And the wallets themselves, they could become targets for hacking.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of a cat and mouse game, really.
So these wallets can help build trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we still need to be careful.
Absolutely.
And not get complacent, right?
Yeah.
Like, just because you have this secure wallet doesn't mean you can just blindly click approve on everything.
Right. So I guess the human factor still plays a huge role.
Huge role.
Okay. Well, this has been a fascinating and slightly terrifying deep dive into the world of APP scams.
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
It seems like, to sum it all up, we're dealing with a massive global threat fueled by social engineering and increasingly sophisticated technology.
Yeah.
Europe is fighting back with new regulations, particularly around those payment services and digital identity.
Right.
And while those digital ID wallets seem to have a lot of potential to make things safer,
Sure.
it really comes down to us, the users, to stay vigilant, to be aware.
Absolutely. And to remember that these systems designed to protect us, they can also become targets themselves.
Right, so the battle is never really over.
Never.
Well, that's a sobering thought to end on, but I think a really important one. So for our listeners out there, I leave you with this. As our digital lives become even more intertwined and our digital identities more valuable, how can we all ensure that these systems designed to protect us don't inadvertently create even bigger opportunities for those sophisticated criminals? And what role does our own individual vigilance play in this constantly evolving landscape?
A lot to think about.
A lot to think about. Well, until next time on The Deep Dive.